r/ProRevenge. Posted by user, Lord S. Thor. He punched me over a fender bender, I destroyed his life. I was working as a civilian, with the US military overseas, and I lived off base in an apartment complex, popular among the US military. One morning I accidentally hit another soldier's vehicle. Upon exiting the vehicle, I noticed that both our vehicles were what you could call a hoopty. A hoopty is an old car, that is pretty beat up that has been passed around from service to service member, and they generally sell for $1,000 to $2,000. I also recognized that I was at fault for the accident. It was a very minor accident. His rear bumper was dented in slightly. But I could hear both our cars still running. I approached the driver, who had already gotten out and he was in uniform, and I apologized and said if it was alright with him, I'd like to negotiate a payment, that I will pay him in cash, and we don't involve the authorities. I wanted to keep this simple. I'll be honest, the accident was so minor, I honestly expected him to say, "Nah man, it's good," but even if he wanted some money I'd have paid him. I have always been of the opinion, if you have a fender bender, and can negotiate agreeable terms between both the parties, it's best to not involve insurance/police. He told me he wanted to call the police. I said we could call the police, or we could go on base together and I could give him $300. He said that wasn't enough. So I upped my offer to $500. He proceeded to punch me in the face. It was a sucker punch. He got into his car and took off, and in the process nearly ran me over. Now I had a black box in my car which recorded everything. I went to the provost marshal office on base, the police station, and reported the accident and the assault, and showed the MP the footage, which they used his license plate to track him down. I was also asked if I wanted to involve the local authorities/press criminal charges off base. Honestly, I felt like the soldier would learn his lesson if I let UCMJ, the military court basically, handle this, and I said, not at this time. I was told it was an option. The end result was the soldier in question got 60 days of extra duty, reduction in rank, and forfeited a portion of his paycheck. Essentially, if he dealt with that, this would have been the end of the whole ordeal. Honestly, at this point I assumed our little ordeal was over. Well, a few days after his punishment was decided on, which was not long after the incident itself, I was in the commissary, grocery store on base, shopping when the soldier, who assaulted me, saw me, and began to insult me. I told him he needed to calm down, that he should learn his lesson. He told me I was a pussy, who didn't know how to take a punch. I reminded him, that I held back on destroying his life. He told me he's already been punished, and I can't touch him again. He left me be. A store employee witnessed the entire encounter and I got the employee detail, and reported this interaction to his command. His commander told me he had been ordered to not interact with me, and would take action. His commander also recommended me to involve the local authorities, since this soldier obviously isn't learning his lesson. So I did. I contacted an attorney. The attorney was unsure if we could successfully sue the soldier, and said he would need a cash payment to take the case. Honestly, I was mad, and I wanted to teach this guy a lesson. I agreed. It was not cheap. To keep this story short, we ended up in a court off base. We presented our evidence. The soldier in question had decided to represent himself. Several times in the court he had outbursts. The judge ended up granting me a judgment of approximately $50,000. When the judgment was given, the soldier called the judge a son of bitch, and that the army would cover for him. So the judge changed his judgment to $80,000, and the judge then asked me, if I also wanted to press charges against this soldier in criminal court. Honestly, it was obvious this guy wasn't going to learn a lesson. I told the judge I wanted to pursue criminal charges, in addition to the judgment. My lawyer later advised me that if I ever wanted to see the money, I should pursue an international hold. With my judgment, it's likely that a judge would grant me an international hold. An international hold is basically where the soldier would not be allowed to leave the country until I was paid my $80,000. Also, he told me that according to the agreement between the US military and the host country, The US military would honor the international hold. Basically, the US military would not protect him, or move him out of country to avoid punishment. Honestly, by this point I had paid my lawyer thousands of dollars, and I honestly didn't feel like paying thousands of dollars, and getting nothing for it. So I said yes, I want to go forward with the international hold. About a month later the international hold was granted, and the US military was informed of this. 2 months after that, the criminal case was over, and the soldier was sentenced to 90 days in jail. By this point the soldier had been moved onto the base, into his barracks by his commander. I remember the day, I was informed the MPs handed him over to the local authorities, to begin his 90-day jail sentence. Did I mention he still owed me $80,000? I heard nothing for a year, and then one day, I get a call from his commander. His commander wants me to make a statement in regards to the case. I go in and make the statement. During the statement, I find out the US military was in the process of chaptering the soldier out of the US military. The commander also informed me that he was close to coming up with the money to pay me, so he could have the international hold lifted. The commander also asked me if my lawyer would be willing to make a statement. I contacted my lawyer, who also made a statement about the facts of the case. A few weeks later his ex-wife contacted me. When this all started, I knew he was married. Guess his wife decided to divorce him. She informed that his ex-husband had the money, and needed the details on how to pay me. I provided her the details, and a few days later I got the payment, and contacted his ex-wife to inform her I had been paid. She then asked me to send a receipt, so he could have the international hold lifted, and return to the States. I asked her how he got the money. She said he maxed out his credit, and also had family help out. Also during this conversation, I had found out the Army had chaptered him out of the military. I sent her the receipt and that was the last I ever heard from his side. TLDR, I get into a fender bender with a soldier. I try to resolve things with him, and he punches me. He gets UCMJ action, a civil judgment, 90 days in jail, a divorce. I actually do not know if the divorce is connected, but I imagine this case didn't help his marriage, a ton of debt, and a loss of his career. I took his $80,000, and bought myself a brand new car, and used the rest of the money to put down on an investment property. FAQ? This post blow up. I turned off inbox replies, cause it was too much. So I felt like answering some common questions. Am I worried about the guy getting revenge on me? No, he's back in the States, I'm still overseas. He most likely has a criminal record, which means he wouldn't even be allowed past immigration. Plus since then I've taken a new job, moved, etc. Not connected to his incident, just how things are, plus this happened many years ago. The amount seems high. The actual amount was in a foreign currency, and I rounded up, and adjusted figures, but it was very high. I did suffer from a black eye, and his behavior after the fact didn't help. Also, this incident happened in an Asia country, during a time period in which we had several other high-profile incidents, with US service members screwing up. My incident was not high-profile at all. But that all played a role. Honestly, I expected around $15,000 to $20,000. Also in this country, settlements for damages are based upon your ability to pay, and tend to be on the higher side. I think the court also thought he was an American, and could afford it. However, the amount even shocked my lawyer. Why did his commander recommend I take this to civil authorities? I got the feeling his commander was tired of this soldier. I suspect I wasn't the first incident. What country did this happen in? I don't wish to disclose that, however, several people in the comment section have guessed correctly. Actually, someone who was familiar with the incident private messaged me. So this blew up more than I intended. I will say this, it happened in Asia, in a country with a large troop presence. Why did I go so far? Honestly, that was never my intention. In fact, I decided to report to the military, instead of going straight to the local authorities, because I figured doing so would allow us to deal with the issue in-house, and his punishment would be limited. I was right, he didn't learn his lesson. However, once I got the local authorities / my lawyer involved, it turned into something I didn't expect. Also, by the time that dust had settled, I had paid my lawyer a significant sum of money, had to use up my vacation days. In total, this entire incident cost me many thousands of dollars in lawyer costs, vacation time, etc. So I did want my money back at that pawn. Why did he get a jail sentence for simple assault? So in this country, they do not like to give suspended sentences to foreigners. I suspect a local national would have gotten a suspended sentence. I do have a local national friend who was involved in an assault many years ago, and he got 90 days suspended sentence. However, my guess is, the judge gave him jail time instead of suspended sentence, because he was a foreigner. However, I was not involved very much in the criminal case. Questions about his wife / ex-wife. Truth be told, I don't know much about this. I do not know if she was his ex-wife because of this or not. I also never saw his ex-wife in person. The only involvement I had with her at the very end. Posted by user Micro7. Half the class fails the midterm, after cheaters copy me. I don't have a problem helping classmates, I really don't. I even tutored several classmates during my final semester of undergrad, because they needed the help. They all ended up passing their classes with my assistance. This story comes from a particularly tough business information systems class during my undergraduate education. The students in this class were mostly non-technical business majors, so this new material wasn't at all similar to anything we'd learned in other classes. Needless to say, most of the students were struggling, including me. I still had a 4.0 in college at this point, though I finished with a 3.99, and I was willing to put in the max effort to keep my stellar GPA. I started studying hard. I made my own Quizlet sets, I read the book every night, I finished assignments a week early, and I did outside research. After grinding it out, in this class for about a month, I was working on an assignment, in a room designated for quiet homework time, and that's where our story begins. Several other students from my class were there, and working on the same assignment I was on. Judging by the size of exasperation, the irritated whispers, and requests for help, they weren't having much success. Having studied relentlessly for a month, I was having an easier time of it. As I got up to go get some water from the fountain in the hall, a classmate asked for my help. I told him I could do that, and I'd be right back. I returned a few minutes later to find what I can only describe as a bunch of busy bees happily working away. This was strange since they were hopelessly stuck 2 minutes before, but whatever. My classmate tells me he figured it out without me. Now, I'm not an idiot, so I know the 5 people in this room probably copied my work off my computer when I went to get water. Scumbag move number 1. But as it turns out, no one in the class needed help the next day or the day after. Whoever in the study room had stolen my work had forwarded it to most of the class. Scumbag move number 2. I don't mind being helpful, but I hate being used, so I made a plan to get back at the people who had stolen my work. It didn't take long to organize my plan and carry it out. Here's how it went. I changed an answer on the next assignment by multiplying by -1. $1,500 became -$1,500 on this question. The next week, I left my computer in the same place as before and went to get water, just like I had done the week before. 75% of the people, in my class of 40 people, put -$1,500 as the answer to question 3, which was definitely incorrect. I began studying relentlessly for the midterm. Our professor had said he wouldn't adjust the weight of the test, something like your score /50, on a test with 60 points available, so your score of 40 becomes 80%, instead of 67%, if anyone scored particularly well. This class was difficult, and no one was expecting anyone to score over 75%, so all my classmates figured the weight of the test would be adjusted. My plan was to wreck the curve, even though it's not a curve, and deny everyone the adjusted weight by producing a sufficiently high score. I recruited a classmate who hadn't stolen my work to study with. Together, We aimed to score high enough that our professor couldn't adjust the weight of the midterm. Here's how it all played out. No one who copied me realized the answer was incorrect. Every last one of those idiots submitted the wrong answer to question 3. This next part surprised me, but my classmates began insisting the class was unfair, too difficult, or rigged, and launched these complaints at our professor. One day after class I had the following exchange: since I was the last student out of the classroom, "Professor, OP, do you think this class is too hard?" Me, honestly, this class is hard, but if people spent as much time studying as they did complaining, they'd be fine. They really need to just get to work, Professor. I thought the same. Me, deciding spur of the moment my next move, I also happen to know that most of the class incorrectly copied my work on the last assignment. Question 3 should be a net income of $1,500, not a net loss of $1,500. I put down the wrong answer initially, everyone copied me, and then I changed the answer later. I think you can reasonably conclude that anyone with minus $1,500 as the answer cheated off of my incorrect work. Professor, I figured they all copied, but I didn't know you were the source. Anyway, thanks for your candor and your dedication to the class. I didn't cheat, so I don't know what happened to those who did, but depending on the class, they would either get a 0 for the assignment, or a plagiarism citation, so they got one of those. Fast forward to test day, and I'm ready to go. I know since most of the students are business majors, they need 70% to pass the class, because it's a required course. Hurting them on the midterm will go a long way in helping them drop their grades. I take the test, I'm the first one done, and I leave pretty sure I've done enough to deny the class the exam weight adjustment. A week later, we get our exams back. Tests are distributed all around me, with scores on the top in red ink. 68, 71, 70, 66, 75, 67, and these are the smart students. Someone on the end of my row takes a test from our professor, and lets out a sigh as he begins passing a test down my row. It stops on my desk. 93%. I've won. Some idiot in the front of the class, so is there going to be a curve? Professor, nope. Me, what was the high score? Professor, 93%. The average score for the exam was 71, so a good number of people didn't get a passing score. Maybe they made up for it on the final, and passed, but I don't care. I got mine. TLDR, people steal my homework, so I bait them into giving a wrong answer, tip the professor off on their cheating, and score high enough on the midterm to deny anyone a chance for an adjusted score. If you liked these stories, hit that like button, and leave a comment below. You can upvote these stories by pressing the links in the description. If you want to hear more stories from me, hit the subscribe button, and press the bell icon to be alerted when a new video is posted.